Buenas tardes, bienvenidos, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Déjenme, en primer lugar, presentarles a las personalidades que nos acompañan y a los protagonistas de la sesión de esta noche, inmediatamente previa a la inauguración de la exposición, la primera exposición de la temporada, Más-que-humanas. En la primera fila tenemos a Francesca Thyssen-Bornemisza, la hija del barón Thyssen-Bornemisza, de Hans Heinrich, y fundadora y presidenta, como saben ustedes, de la Fundación TVA 21, Thyssen-Bornemisza Art Contemporary Art del siglo XXI, con la que el Museo Nacional Thyssen-Bornemisza ha firmado un acuerdo estable de colaboración. La acompañan su chief curator, algunos miembros del patronato, Irene Mastelli, Marcus, que es director de una entidad o de una organización que se va a extinguir ahora, una ONG TVA 21 Academy, que se va a extinguir de la Fundación, y están también con nosotros Blanca y Borja Thyssen-Bornemisza, en primera fila, y Carlos Urroz, que es el nuevo director, el flamante nuevo director de la Fundación TVA 21 y que inaugura la presencia de la Fundación, la actividad de la Fundación en Madrid. Los protagonistas, de todas formas, de la jornada son los artistas, los protagonistas de la exposición, claro. La artista francesa Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster y el artista argentino, radicado en Alemania, Tomás Saraceno, y la comisaria de la exposición, Stefanie Hessler. Voy a hablar un poco brevemente de ellos, me perdonarán si introduzco un poco las piezas que se presentan en la exposición, en qué consiste brevemente la exposición y la trayectoria de los artistas, que son muy conocidos, serán muy conocidos para muchos de ustedes, porque son artistas del mayor nivel, del máximo nivel internacional en la escena del arte contemporáneo, pero no obstante, por si hubiera alguien que no estuviera al tanto, es preciso recordar algunos de sus hitos y de la propia comisaria. Por empezar, por la comisaria. Stefanie Hessler es una muy joven, como ven ustedes, pero con una carrera ya importante, curator sueca, y en este momento ha sido nombrada recientemente directora de la Kunsthalle de Trondheim, en Noruega, entre otras cosas, entre otras actividades. Y puedo anunciar ya que va a ser ha curado, ha comisariado la exposición en Venecia de un proyecto también de TVA 21 y será la próxima comisaria de nuestra próxima exposición ligada a este proyecto de colaboración con la Fundación Francesca el próximo mes de febrero, que estará dedicado precisamente a esta gran artista, a esta gran clásica del arte contemporáneo, que es Joan Jonas, con un proyecto especialmente comisionado por TVA 21. Sobre los dos artistas, que es a los que quiero dedicar el mayor espacio de mi presentación. Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster es una artista extraordinariamente conocida. Se la situaría, si hubiera que situarla por el uso de los medios, probablemente habría quien diría que ha usado la instalación, la performance y el vídeo, pues medios muy habituales en la escena contemporánea. Pero a ella no le gustan las palabras vídeo, ni instalación, ni performance. Y le gusta hablar de apariciones y fantasmas. Lo que ella crea son apariciones y fantasmas. Dominique es conocida por haber creado desde ya en los años 90 unos escenarios inmersivos. Por ejemplo, recuerdo su serie de chambre, habitaciones de los 90, que consistían literalmente en habitaciones, el espacio, por ejemplo, de un dormitorio, iluminados con una luz coloreada que producía una extraña intensidad y una extraña irrealidad también, y nos producía la sensación como de estar entrando en una película cuando entrábamos en esas habitaciones. Hace 3 años, bueno, ha gozado de muchos honores importantes, tuvo el privilegio raro de tener la Turbine Hall de la Tate Modern a su disposición para un gran proyecto, y hace 3 años disfrutó, entre 2015 y 2016, de una gran retrospectiva en el Pompidou, privilegio no menos raro y no menos extraordinario, que se titulaba Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster 1887-2058, con estas fechas tan extrañas, ¿no?, tan dilatadas, porque la cronología no correspondía a la fecha en que las obras se habían hecho, sino a los tiempos que las obras evocaban, porque las obras de ella a veces se anticipan al futuro o se remontan al pasado. Y la primera fecha, 1887, se refería curiosamente a una exposición, a un conjunto de obra que hizo aquí en Madrid, en 2014, en el Palacio de Cristal del Retiro. Lo que hizo básicamente fue transformar ese edificio del Palacio de Cristal, que precisamente fue construido en 1887, en lo que a veces podría sugerir, para una imaginación algo literaria o algo fílmica desatada, que es como un balneario o un hotel abandonado. Ella le llamó el Hotel Splendid y era como la evocación de un hotel lleno de mecedoras Tonet del final del siglo XIX, como habitado por espectros, como habitado por fantasmas. Hay mucha influencia de los escenarios fílmicos en la obra de Dominique, como saben los que la conocen. Bueno, pues cada obra de Dominique puede convertirse en un portal que nos conduzca a otra zona del espacio-tiempo, ¿no?, a otra época, a un lugar remoto. En la Expo del Pompidou de hace 3 años, una parte de ese desarrollo tomó la forma de un tríptico de estos revenants o de apariciones o fantasmas. Sarah Bernhardt, Marilyn Monroe, María Callas. Las 3 encarnadas en su cuerpo, maquillada, vestida y con una fabulosa presencia que no se debe llamar actuación, porque no es una actuación teatral, por la propia Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster. En los últimos años ha encarnado a otros personajes, ha encarnado al Rey Loco, a Luis II de Baviera, a Edgar Allan Poe, a Lola Montes, a Fitzcarraldo, personajes todos legendarios y sumamente intensos, ¿no? Cuando crea estas apariciones, ella dice que no tiene la sensación de estar eligiendo a sus personajes, sino más bien de que los personajes la han elegido a ella. Y verdaderamente los personajes, en cierto sentido, toman posesión de ella. Ella ha explicado muchas veces, de manera muy bella, que en el caso de Sarah Bernhardt, Marilyn Monroe y María Callas, se trata de 3 mujeres que le han interesado desde hace muchísimo tiempo, porque fueron obras de arte vivientes, porque el arte tomó posesión de ellas y lo vivieron hasta el límite, hasta la muerte, ¿no? Ella destaca siempre que en ellas, en los cantantes en general, la creación y la presencia se funden en uno. Y podríamos decir que así como ellas estaban poseídas por el arte, asumían en su cuerpo todo eso, ellas como revenant, como apariciones, se han encarnado, han tomado posesión del cuerpo de la propia artista, de la propia Dominique. Eso es lo que van a ver en la pieza ópera QM, que es la pieza única, extraordinaria, que está en la exposición de estas salas de abajo y que presentamos ahora y de la que no les voy a dar más detalles, porque es mejor que la vivan, ¿no? Tomás Saraceno es un artista argentino, como he dicho, afincado en Alemania. Se formó como arquitecto en Argentina y luego continuó sus estudios y se convirtió en un artista en Alemania, cuyo arte, algunos podrían decir que no tiene una relación obvia con el de Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster, pero cuanto más los vemos juntos, más comprendemos la cantidad de analogías. Yo diría que, para empezar, el arte de Tomás Saraceno está, como el de Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster, habitado por presencias, habitado por unas criaturas que vienen como de otro mundo. El título de la exposición, Más-que-humanas, tiene un poco que ver con eso. Igual que María Callas es más que humana, lo son las criaturas que dominan, que inspiran la obra de Tomás Saraceno, las arañas. Las arañas no tienen oídos, pero viven, como María Callas, se juegan la vida con su percepción de las vibraciones y se comunican y perciben el mundo a través de las vibraciones de sus telas, de sus fibras. A Tomás no le gusta que digamos, yo he dicho esta mañana en la rueda de prensa que él había invitado a las arañas y las había hecho sus colaboradoras y él me ha corregido y me ha dicho que son las arañas más bien las que se podría decir que le invitan a él y le convierten en el colaborador de su mundo, ¿no? Y de lo que las arañas hacen del medio que construyen las arañas. Tomás Saraceno se podría decir, sin forzar demasiado la cosa, que como artista se convierte en una gran araña versatilísima y convierte a los espectadores también en araña. Muchas de sus instalaciones de carácter interactivo hacen que los espectadores, por ejemplo, entren en una red, en una trama que está inspirada por las telarañas y, por ejemplo, sientan la vibración en los hilos y se comuniquen unos con otros a través de esas vibraciones. O a veces sus instalaciones involucran realmente la presencia de arañas vivas, ¿no? Hay alguna experiencia sonora verdaderamente apasionante en el curso de la cual músicos experimentales colaboran con las arañas. O, por ejemplo, se establece entre las arañas y una serie de aparatos sensoriales científicos, por ejemplo, una antena gravitacional que está instalada en Pisa y que recibe las ondas gravitacionales que vienen a veces de los primeros momentos del Big Bang, de los primeros estadios de la aparición del universo, o llegan, nos hacen conscientes de la colisión entre dos agujeros negros que tuvo lugar hace millones de años, pues eso él lo traduce en señales de audio para que las arañas puedan responder a esas señales. Toda la obra de Tomás tiene una fuerte dimensión íntima y una dimensión cósmica al mismo tiempo. Lo van a ver en la exposición. En la exposición hay dos urnas llenas de una densa fábrica, de una densa tela o telas, que son las obras de arte de las arañas, tratadas para que respondan a la luz. Son como esculturas que interactúan con la luz y que a mí me recuerdan una experiencia que él cuenta de su infancia, cuando durante la siesta contemplaba, como quizá todos lo hemos hecho, un rayo de sol atravesando el polvo suspendido en la atmósfera, ¿no? Y esa sensación fascinante de ser capaz de ver las partículas del polvo gracias a un rayo de sol filtrado. Esa es la dimensión íntima, pero la dimensión cósmica está por todas partes también. Por ejemplo, la luz láser incidiendo sobre las telas de araña las transforma en una especie de mapa cósmico, de mapa de galaxias, de estrellas fugaces, de constelaciones. En el vídeo final, que tiene que ver con la vida de una araña subacuática, y es fascinante desde un punto de vista científico, pero al mismo tiempo se convierte en una gran creación artística visual, asistimos también a manifestaciones de una inteligencia más que humana, sobrehumana. Y entendemos que las telas de araña le han servido a Tomás. Las telas de araña no son simples construcciones arquitectónicas o ingenieriles, son también antenas, son también instrumentos musicales, son incluso, pueden convertirse en aparatos voladores. Él ha investigado también, ha desarrollado en el aeroceno una serie de experiencias con globos de aire caliente, calentados únicamente por la luz solar y el calor de la Tierra, con los que consigue un tipo de viaje completamente no agresivo para la Tierra, completamente pues ecológico, ¿no? La ecología está muy en el corazón de las preocupaciones de Tomás, y esto es algo en lo que conecta muchísimo con la con la inspiración, los esfuerzos, los empeños de la Fundación TVA 21. Bueno, yo quiero decir que la presencia de estos dos grandes artistas aquí, con este proyecto maravilloso trabado por Stefanie, es un inmenso privilegio para el Museo Thyssen. Hemos instalado en la propia colección dos obras sobre papel de Tomás también, para demostrar que esto no es algo simplemente añadido, no es una adherencia, sino que queremos que dialogue con nuestra colección, queremos renovar el museo desde dentro. Y quiero decir que con esto se corona la primera etapa de un esfuerzo de colaboración que comenzó, realmente se manifestó por primera vez el año pasado con la exposición a Confra, luego ha seguido este año en febrero con la exposición de Amarcambar, pero ahora llega a un nuevo estadio por varias razones. Primero, porque hemos firmado ya en primavera un acuerdo formal de colaboración con TVA 21, por el cual todos los años se harán dos exposiciones en colaboración entre la Fundación TVA 21 y el Museo Thyssen-Bornemisza. TVA 21 ha nombrado un director general que además es alguien de nuestro mundo del mundo del arte español, a quien conocemos de toda la vida y con quien hemos trabajado muy bien desde siempre, que es Carlos Urroz, que está aquí presente, como he dicho. Y finalmente, bueno, pues TVA 21 ha abierto una sede que está en la calle Amor de Dios, una oficina. Hubo un open house hace un par de semanas y la comunidad artística madrileña y española ya sabe dónde están. Ellos van a tener, siempre insisto en esto, no van a ser un apéndice del Museo Thyssen, en absoluto. Ellos tienen su propio recorrido internacional, su propia red, sus propios partners, y aquí también en España van a establecer sus propias relaciones, pero trabajaremos juntos cada vez con más intensidad y con más entusiasmo en estos proyectos y en muchos otros que vendrán en adelante. Entonces, me gustaría que la fundadora y presidenta de la Fundación TVA 21 pues les contara lo que quiera contarles ahora. Para nosotros es un enorme privilegio, una enorme satisfacción tenerla aquí con nosotros una vez más. Por favor, Francesca.
You're such a hard act to follow, Guillermo. You're so incredible, and thank you so much for all these kind words and extraordinary positioning of this whole project within the belly of this incredible museum at the Thyssen. And it's really, really incredible when I look back at my childhood when I was 16 and how I looked at the world full of hope. And I woke up this morning and I watched Greta Thornburg, very emotional, talking about how she feels that her childhood is being robbed from her and what a terrible emotional toll that has on her. And I have to put this into perspective because this exhibition is the very, very first one that is completely carbon-free. Both of these wonderful artists came here to Madrid by train. I was ashamed to arrive by plane, and I think this is a really important first step in this sequence of exhibitions that we're looking forward to being sustainable and environmentally friendly. I really wanted to just mention that. It's very important to us, to both artists, and they took the lead by coming here by train, and I thought if you lead by example, then you really have something to say about the environment. And both of them have tremendous things to say, so I'm going to be very, very short. Just wanted to mention two things. One, somebody asked me in the press conference this morning, why this exhibition? Why Tomás Saraceno and Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster? Why the two of them? And I just wanted to say that I'd seen both of their work last year and the year before. Particularly Dominique's work was in a really amazing exhibition in London, 108, curated by Ralph Rugoff. And I saw opera for the first time, and it just completely took my breath away. It was the most extraordinary experience, this this ghostly appearance of Maria Callas, and this extraordinary music that I grew up with listening to, and of course had the opportunity of seeing often during Gérard Mortier's tenure at the Salzburg Festival, he spent many years being the director of the opera here as well. And Dominique knew him very well, and this relationship with music is just so amazing, and I hope you're going to see this beautiful show just afterwards. But I really wanted to show this as soon as possible here at the Thyssen Museum. I thought you would all love it. I thought it would be a fantastic project for Madrid. You all love Maria Callas so much, and it would have a wonderful opportunity of introducing our program to an entirely new audience at the museum. Thomas has been a friend, a dear friend for many, many years, and I really admire the fact that he has this speculation about the environment and the climate change, not the way we always try to plan it 20, 30 years in advance, but 200 to 300 years in advance. He's a total visionary. He's a space cadet. He's a man of the science, and he's a man of the arts, and he's a man of music, and he's a great friend. And may I dare say? It's his birthday today. So he's really been, these works you will see sort of really tie together very brilliantly because of the fabulous work of Stefanie Hessler. And I dare say Thomas's and Dominique's incredible, detailed support for this installation, which is really, really fantastic and spectacular. So I really want to thank Stefanie with her sensitivity and intelligence to have brought this amazing project to life. And on that, I really want them to get on with their artist talk, and I could speak for hours, but you know, I'd rather they did it. So thank you so much for coming.
So Maria Callas, as you know, was one of the most iconic opera singers that's ever lived. And her performances, and that of many other opera singers as well, evoke very powerful, emotional, very visceral responses in the listener. So there's a connection there between the vibrations that the spiders sense in their web and the vibrations of the song or of the sound of opera. We often think of opera, at least in Western culture, as one of the most sort of elaborate art forms or forms of music created by humans. But we hardly think of other animals that aren't humans as having culture. And I think that that's something that we need to reconsider, because looking at spider webs, the architectures are incredibly complex. They're beautiful to look at, but also extremely difficult to build. So scientists know how the silk is made, but they do not necessarily understand how a web is built or how the spider uses silk in 7 different ways or produces 7 different forms of silk to build very complex webs. And how it can fine-tune the web as well to understand where movement is coming from. So if an insect crawls on an outer piece of silk, the spider can actually tell where it's coming from. And also when it flies into the center where the prey is usually caught, the spider knows. So all of these intricacies are known to humans, but we cannot reproduce the webs. So there's a very particular intelligence there that we cannot replicate through Western science or through our rational, modernist understanding of the world. So if we look towards Dominique's works, there's something that is more than human, as well as spiders, but the more than human in your work is much more about a haunted sort of presence or an apparition, something that we maybe also cannot really grasp with the rational mind, but which is nevertheless there, and which we can perhaps feel. So the proposition with this exhibition is really to bring these different types of intelligence together, of spiders and of humans, and to consider other ways of knowing that are not through the intellect only, or through vision and the eyes, but through other senses too, and senses that we maybe don't even know exist in other species, because we don't have them ourselves. And so More Than Humans is a proposition to actually broaden our senses towards other things that exist, and maybe even if we don't understand or even know that they exist, to still let them be in a way and enjoy their more than human intelligence. Tomás, you've worked a lot with spiders, and spiders found you to collaborate with. It would be fantastic to hear a bit more about that work in particular, because it is so speculative.
You have a beautiful conversation yesterday with Roland Müller-Thaler, which is an entomologist who came also to Madrid and to observe what is the population of spiders inside the house, how many spider lives at the Thyssen-Bornemisza. And it seems there are very, very few. This means have been very clean, the museum, and spiders are not here, actually, much present. But some of them, we found them, just because I interrupted. And then you give a wonderful talk yesterday with Roland at the
Media Lab Prado.
At the Media Lab Prado, which I think is, again, what I will try to go is a little bit what, how the exhibition is coming together and how much is within the space, but at the same time we try to kind of embed this cosmic web to other web of relationship, or where the exhibition start and end, and how our practice also get entangled with other form of practice and form of being that we could inhabit. And this means Roland had been doing a mapping, and I've been also looking, and this means here is a little bit some of the spiders we have been find in the Real Jardín Botánico, and we classify them by 4 types of webs: the lace web, the sheet webs, orb webs, and the space webs. And here are different locations where the exhibition is present. This means what I want to offer you also, that as long as you also will maybe get inspired and try to think about what you will see down, is also to maybe what Anna Zink also kind of mentioned again, this art of noticing, right? That then later you will start to look, and then we have a small app which I encourage also to, if you want, try to use, that is kind of an oracle spider divination reading that will help you to entangle with other words and asking questions to spiders, and she will send you some vibrations and some different modes of communication. This means he's really hopefully within this exhibition also you will start to look at them.
Maybe just one note for those of you who don't know Anat Singh, The Art of Noticing. Anat Singh is an anthropologist who wrote a wonderful book called The Mushroom at the End of the World, in which she describes what's it called? Matsutake?
Yeah, mushroom.
Matsutake mushrooms.
Yeah.
And she basically looks at the global supply chain, but also focuses on people farming the mushrooms, picking the mushrooms. And she suggests that we need to find new tools to develop new, not necessarily new, but maybe rediscover tools of noticing our surroundings and of noticing our relations with our surroundings. So it's a beautiful book. That's what Thomas just referred to.
This is a lace web, and was found in one of the trees here in the botanical garden. And with Roland, we speculate that it might be 200 years old. It's a quite. There's another spider web that we found, and according to Roland, it's a sheet web, which is quite beautiful. A leaf got caught in the web. Also, we found it during these days. Another beautiful spider web with the spider also, which very beautiful. These one, yes, are in the wall, in the entrance, and in the garage of the museum. It's many Brigitea civica, it's called, and this you could find it here within the confine of the museum. One thing that also I don't want to keep insisting to, if you want to get this oracle through the phone, but there is a quite beautiful thing if you have a tuning fork, and then which is in the range of 400 hertz. We will try to get into music, and this means what are the vibrations that we should think or sing, and this I think so is the question that I'm asking with Dominique, and was all the time for me the idea if how the spiders respond to Maria Callas, right? And which webs they will be weaving if they will be hearing all the time Maria Callas, right? And I think it's a very different wave, right? remember the experiments in the 60s and the 70s where spiders were giving any type of drugs, and actually the web, which was more crazy, was the one who was taking caffeine. And this means, what are the webs with this? And this means in one moment, which Stefanie also said, because we thought, like, people were asking, but will you bring spider web? Well, what we tried is like we said, well, the spiders are here, right? Maybe if we stop cleaning the museum, the spider will start to come, right? And maybe they love Maria Callas, and they start to weave webs on top of other webs, and something very different will happen, and new encounters, and this more than human agency and presence that we want to give and allow ourselves to co-inhabit with others, it will appear. This means, go back again, because there is a moment in the exhibition that you start to hear Maria Callas within another work, no? And I thought, I like this kind of weaving, no? This again where Guillermo said we were working another kind of web-flecked work. He didn't appear, and then now appear in room 43, which 45. Is kind of 45. Yeah. And then Guillermo said, oh, this doesn't look good. And then Francesca also said, it doesn't look good. And then we, very generous, we say, well, we took off some Matisse. No, Miro. And then this work appeared also in the museum. This means, again, this art of noticing, or maybe of extending the exhibition within, out of the realm of where usually we are, is something which I want to say.
Can you speak a bit about the, why do you think we should notice spiders? And I know that you have an arachnophilia team at your studio working to turn arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, into friendship with spiders. And maybe you want to show the app that you mentioned and tell us how it works also.
Yeah, there are images there.
There are images,
maybe.
Yes.
And while we look for the image, to bring back again this, the word, who is good in, or want to read something in English? Ah, no, you don't have a microphone. Or maybe there is a mic. Annalyn is here also. I don't want to forget.
This one?
There is a beautiful video in the last room, which I really have to credit Annalena for this amazing work on these underwater spiders, which for me is breathtaking, and I'm very happy that she came all the way here. Okay, in most legal jurisdiction in the world, an animal is considered an object without rights or property capable of being owned, bought and sold, not a subject with rights. In 2014, Sandra, the orangutan, was named a non-human person, by the court of law during the giving them the habeas corpus cause to consider her detention in Buenos Aires Zoo. I mean, you remember this case, no? I will go on a little bit. Due to her advanced cognitive ability, the category of non-human person showed the gap between science. We recognize the cognition of animals and the law, which favors of protection of institutions that hold animals in captivity. I mean, that was the first case in the world that was giving a personhood to an animal. In that case was Sandra, this orangutan, which was held in the zoo in Argentina. And this was the first really case that it started to have, let's say, human rights, an animal. And then she was released then later in the thing. This means when we, in the legal framework today, we are also imposing, is pretty much human, and this is very much problematic also when you start to understand and we try to think about the world of the spider, because we try to protect them with laws that maybe are applying, maybe the time is gone, to humans, but I think so the law, it's quite different when you enter. Who knows the case of the black widow, right? What happened? After mating, the female eat the male, and it's okay. You know what I mean? What you will put to jail the female because he's eating the male, no, it will not work, that law, for that specific case, right? This means, now there are other cases of spider, where the babies, when they are born, they crawl on the back of the mother. What is the first thing they eat? The mother, right? It's quite cruel for us, but now we are applying, again, our system of juridical law, and we're giving legal rights, which is amazing. Remember, in the European Union, do you understand the connection? Sometimes I go fast, and maybe you could stop me if something is not in. It's understood, no?
I think so.
Now, spiders are invertebrates. 97% of all the animals in the world are invertebrates. Now, this means the most legal framework is for vertebrates, for mammals, for the ones which are very similar for us. And this means in the European Union today, still the legal framework to have spiders in places and treat them or mistreat them is not yet regulated. Right? This means 97% of all the invertebrates in the planet Earth have not been really regulated. This means I can really treat them bad. Remember what we were doing with the monkeys in the past, right? And this means it's quite of a challenge still of this gap of sensitivity, presence, and what we will be. I didn't want to really get into the politics of this conversation, but somehow I get emotional to that extent.
I think something that's quite important is that you're pointing out legal rights for animals. And I have a provocation, perhaps, which is that legal rights, the way that they're built, structured right now, are a patriarchal colonial construct, right?
As well.
So what does it mean to merely extend those rights to non-humans on the basis of, in the case of Sandra, her cognitive abilities? So we're measuring basically whether an animal is close enough to us to be given certain rights. So
but this is what I was saying, exactly,
yeah.
no? It's clear. That's exactly what I was saying, right? It's like a, right, this is why I say maybe you don't understand nothing what I'm talking about, Steffi will translate it in a way that it's, right?
So, you know, that's for me one of the big questions is how can we actually get away from certain categorizations that have been used to treat some humans differently than others, and obviously also to treat animals differently than humans. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I mean, I just was the case of the Black Widow, right? Yes. Right? Yes, it's very patriarchal yet, if you judge that. Anyway, I don't want to get there, but yeah. Should I continue questions or how we do, Dominic, Steffi?
I'm still really curious about the app because
Okay.
I think with the app you work towards creating a different logic that is not so much based on rationality. It still takes astrology as a form of knowledge. I don't know if we want to, if it's science or not, but anyway, a sort of system, and it connects it to spiders. So
Yeah.
maybe you can talk a bit about the app.
There are mambila between Nigeria and Cameroon. There is something which is called spider divination, and with and there is in Oxford University David Cycling. Once again, cycling. I'm going with him to Cameroon by the end of December to see them. And then this tribe, what they do is really like consult these oracles, which in this case are spiders who build some web but are not so relevant, who live under the ground in a kind of in a tunnel. They put in front of them, there are some cards in the presentation of them, Mambila, I think so.
Okay.
No, they're much beautiful, the cards that they do. No? Okay. We go back. They put the cards, which are beautiful leaves from a tree, which have a very kind of tiny incision, which they have a kind of a very complex way of interpreting which symbolism in each this card. They put it in front of the spider. They cover with con un pote, con un lid, con una cacerola. And then they ask the question to the spider. It has to be a binary question. And the spider answer. And then there is somebody who interprets this divination. This means the spider come up from the hole, shuffle the cards, then she go back to the hole, and then you try to predict the future based on that relationship that the spider have with the cards and or interpretation. Now, I'm trying now to do something which I never did. Let's say this. The question that they asked to the spider is really binary. Our society guilt, let's say I'm asking now to the oracle, how guilt we are on the mass extinction that we are provoking on the insects, right? And the spider could tell me yes or no. If the spider say yes, and many spiders say yes at the same time, police come, put you las, ¿cómo se llaman? Esposas, y te vas a la cárcel. Right? It's unbelievable, right? This means if I say, is Stefanie Hessler guilty? And then the spider say yes, you go to jail. If spider have answered for several times the same thing. This means it's quite interesting, this idea of giving back on our irresponsibility or relationship with this kind of, this mass extinction that we are, facing today. Give back the agency to the animal, and she became kind of a major ruler court that decide also the way of how we should start to behave, which I kind of find it fascinating to a certain extent. And based on that, then we started to speculate also and trying to mix different form of thinking how we can entangle with this world and this web. It's been what it happened basically in the app, which kind of I hate the way how we relate with the telephone. And I think so. You did some beautiful things on attention, no? Because the work at Palais Tokyo, we call it webs of attention, right? But nevertheless, it's a little bit also challenging the technology and see of how technology could help us also to communicate with a world which is not necessarily human. And this means what you do is usually in the app, first you download it for free. Things look, I'm selling like a product, but you go up there and then you ask a question to the spider, and then what it happened, the answer is a vibration. And this means the phone starts to vibrate like quite crazy. Exercise of tuning, no? I'm asking, maybe Dominique, it's like exactly what will be to sing to a spider web, right? Or what it will be to, remember they have amazing courtships and they really be beautiful frequency and vibration, no? The Sitophora citricola one made really and we have a huge archives of all these sounds and all these rhythms that the spider plays, this beautiful, as Guillermo said also, this musical instrument that for me is a very complex guitar, harp, or whatever it might be, human projection that, yes, nevertheless, I keep doing to a certain extent. This is quite sophisticated. And remember also, the web is an extension of the body. And this means what we always try to do, and I think so we should always try to say when we talk about spiders, we invent a new terminology, spider/web. This means we try to rethink that it's not anymore a spider web by itself, the spider alone, it's spider/web. And this means that's the embodied extended cognition we are trying to kind of put forward, of trying to understand the spider. Think about something, the spider, if it's not allowed to, is not able to build a web, she will, no va a comer hasta que se muere, si no construye la tela. She will starve to death if she's not able to build a web. This means she's weaving her own mouse, right? If she don't weave the web, which is the mouse where she eat and sense, then she will not eat. And this means how you could neglect to a certain extent that the web is not part of their own body, right? And this means how you could still think today of the planet Earth of saying humans, or some humans, they are so decoupled from the planet Earth, right? And the planet Earth from the cosmic web, and then you can start to re-entangle that relationship. This means what we are trying to really think is about that, folded ecosystem and ecologies of practice, from the social, maybe.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is I think this is a good moment to lead to Dominique. And Dominique, you've worked also with technology, but you have a very different relationship, and we talked a little bit about digital technologies and the way that they change our ways of relating to the world. The work on view here is a holographic technique deriving from 19th century photography. And 19th century photography is interesting, of course, because it was possible all of a sudden to capture a portrait of a person in a photographic plate, and the person wasn't there any longer. So there was something very eerie, phantasmagoric, haunted in early photography and other technologies. And in your work, as was mentioned briefly before, you refer to apparitions quite a lot, and it would be great to hear about your apparitions.
Give us the first
Slides
image.
coming.
So to go back, to connect with what you said, I think it's absolutely necessary that we, and I love the way you make us aware of that despite the fact that we think we, because we're very strong, humans are very strong predators, and we might believe we rule this space and this room, but I really like that you make us aware of the fact that we share the space, the planet, the moments, the landscapes with many other beings. And it's absolutely necessary to look at our existence, modes of existence, as a way to share space and time with other types of beings. So these other types of beings being organic, or now we also live together with many other types of beings. It's a great concept. Etienne Souriau, the philosopher, described this as existence modes. And so we share our space, our lives with fictional beings. A lot of beings here in the museum. The museum is saturated with other beings, traces of other lives. So fictional beings, virtual beings, avatars, all sorts of artificial intelligences. For those who've liked the film Her, where the main actor is in touch with this being that is not real. So we should remember that all the time we are sharing our space, our mind, our consciousness with lots of other beings that are different. I'm wearing this on purpose because it says actually the dead are not dead, which is the title of the Bergen Biennale now, and it's also something developed in a beautiful way by Vinciane Després. Vinciane is also a friend of Anat Singh, and it's this whole awareness of sharing time and space with other types of beings. I think that can make us a bit more humble and sensitive to other forms of life. It's not the fact that we feel very powerful because of our technological extensions and biotechnologies and ways of conquering space and time doesn't mean that we shouldn't care of other ways of being. That's, I think, really something we share. So I've been, for a long time, my journey and my research was more into space in a way and different types of spaces. And it slowly turned into beings, or as we said, these modes of existence. And maybe rooms became like exploring rooms became more like exploring characters, and exploring this multiplicity of beings is also exploring the plasticity of our own being. So most of you might feel they're stuck in one imposed identity or constructed identity, it being masculine, feminine, or part of a specific group. But you can also realize, and this was the research in the past years, that as much as we can say our brain is very plastic, our our being, our identity, our body is very plastic too, and we have much more possibilities than we think. I mean, the sheer pleasure we have when we as children, but also adults, when we transform for parties, but also other types of pleasures, shows that there is an immense longing for transformation, and there is a terrible, I think, social imposition on constructing one character and identity. And we shouldn't forget that we have many more possibilities. I mean, when we look at films, when we read, we're so fascinated by theater and transformations, it's because we feel that there is something very strong there that is one of the human possibilities, which is of transformation. And we change, it happens slower, but we see it with children, or when we see them growing, or we also need to grow the awareness of all these changes, to feel closer to other types of beings, like the moment we're in terms of how we appear and what we perform and what we are, is only a little moment of a very long transformation that brings us to many, many different moments of consciousness. And these moments of consciousness are, I think, also connected to the experience we share with other beings, being plants, being insects, being all types of... So it's when entering these fictional or characters that existed, like whether it is Kafka or Replicant from Blade Runner or like Casati. Casati is for me very important because she embodied this idea of being your own artwork, and she's really like, you can almost see her as in this whole genealogy of performances that goes to Anna Mendieta, and now a very strong rebirth of performative forms. She's very important. And so this is just from Edgar Allan Poe, who really gave me one of the most scary and deep experience I ever had, by the way he wanted to, he came in, and I saw him appearing through, I believe, some very powerful beings, even dead, they still look for ways to come out, and when they find a door, and I'm not a mystical person at all, but when you open a door for these presences, they take their chance, and they appear. So this is part of the work. Maybe we can go to the next. One of the a very important encounter, and it may be strange for you, but it's with Ludwig II. So Ludwig II was completely fascinated with, with opera, but also with narrative space. The way he imagined his castles and was not an architecture, a display of power, but a display of fiction and narration. And therefore, I really see him, the same way I see Casati as very important, Marchesa Casati, in relation to performance, I see Ludwig II as a super important figure in relation to immersive art. And the grotto he designed, and his very early interest in all sorts of technologies, that's why he then became a kind of steampunk hero, but it's very interesting to study, and the hard time people around him gave him, and is completely, is really sad when you think that by now his influence and the whole idea of a narrative space, and I mean, think of Disneyland, but not only, think of many spaces, has become so important. So entering Ludwig entering Ludwig through Visconti's Ludwig, and being Ludwig was also a way to be in touch with all these ideas. Maybe. Okay, this is from an exhibition in Rio, but this is entering Marilyn Monroe in her very last film, when she's where these moments in the swimming pool, but also when I think she's at the. For me, she's an extraordinary figure. Because the way she constructed her being and her appearances and the artificiality of it connected to the moment and many things, her writing, her interest for psychoanalysis, and she's a very, very complex figure. In the next image, we see my long time wonderful friend Enrique Villamatas, who has been an incredible inspiration also in terms of plasticity. Most of you probably know Enrique's novels and writings, and we were lucky to meet in 2007 and to start a conversation that is still going on and super fertile. And I believe that Enrique is writing only one very long book through all his books, and that the way he's exploring literature, but also connecting it to his own, I mean, the way he's writing, I feel very close to. So this is also a tribute to my dear friends. Yes, sorry, just come back to the reason I'm close to him as Marlene Dietrich is because for the Pompidou exhibition, there was a room that was closed, and only Enrique had the key. So before he went into the room, I asked him what he thought is in this room, and he told me, I'm sure there is a suitcase with clothes from Marlene Dietrich. I leave you with that. In the past 2 years, I've gone through these transformations, and which really also connect me. I want to go back to this idea of artificial lives and all these lives these other lives that surround us, now being robots, now being androids. Maybe some of you have seen Westworld or other series. Maybe some of you are aware that what we project on robots, and even you know that there are some people have very aggressive relation to their Alexa presences, or that there are interesting studies on how we relate to all these other beings. There is sometime when I start to think about all these presences, disappearing, I'm also very fascinated by the replicant character. So the replicant appears in Philip K. Dick's novels and then in Blade Runner. And you might remember that in order to identify a replicant, there is a test, you know. And the test is if you react to like if the replicant reacts to a description of a cruelty a human would react to, you know. So test the emotional response of, but the replicants, I think, for us it's very interesting to look at these beings that are inspired by humans, and because the relation to these androids or beings or robots can also help us to increase our consciousness. We might not be, we might think, you know, I like the idea that so Freud built an amazing, you know, an amazing thing on this idea of the unconscious, and this became a kind of model where we think consciousness reigns and the unconscious is something hidden. Well, I almost believe the opposite. I think most of the time we act like replicants and robots, and we do a very automatic, we act in a very automatic way. And consciousness is the hidden part, is the precious part. And consciousness is awakened only in very specific moments. It's sometimes try to see things this way, like, because we're performing in such a mechanical way that we forget what is really the experience of consciousness. And when we experience other beings, relation to other beings, or being different or not, you know that when you work on an image, you, in fact, our mind most of the time is, you know, is just securing, like we know that now I've recorded all that, and I'm just functioning with what could be different, you know. And so it's very important to make changes in order to feel a certain type of consciousness. And this has, in the past years, I've also started singing, and songs can be like rooms, and we can move to the next images, because I believe that trying very different ways, and I was never born to be a singer or to perform on stage, or I come from a very different perspective, but it's the same as, you know, this plasticity of body, gender, whatever, and it's very, very important to explore as an artist or any type of being other possibilities. So this has been, in the past 2 years, my interest has gone into singing. Yes, maybe you can go to the last. There is one last image that I want to connect to something I've seen today, and today I went to the Reina Sofia because I have friends opening an amazing exhibition on Delphine Seyrig. Delphine Seyrig is a French actress, but also a fantastic feminist, and she's been very important for video, cinema. So you can only, in the past months, I was in a parallel way. I was working on an apparition that is now at the if you go to Paris at the opera, it's a ghost. Again, it's exploring, you know, we're used to artworks being stable things, whether it's a painting or a sculpture, and slowly with video we've moved to time-based and with performance, but we're maybe not aware that things, or maybe we become aware too soon that a lot of things can also disappear, you know, and maybe we're in a time where appearing and disappearing is a more important movement than just being there and having a long-term presence. And so this is just working on this character, which are in Marienbad, last year in Marienbad, and have also in the Alain Resnais film, and where Delphine Seyrig is playing, and they have this, they embody this strange presence, like these contemporary ghosts that are also, it's also what's at stake here in Opera QM15. Sorry, I was a bit long. This was great.
Thank you so much, Dominique and Tomás. Maybe one comment from me, just to weave it together, and then we open up for questions because it's getting late. I really think that, you know, these apparitions or looking towards other presences can be very important, of course, but also that moment of time, or to not think time only as linear or as one thing following the next, but actually to look towards different times that coexist or that can maybe morph, how apparitions can come back to us, or how people can be channeled from the past, how ideas can return from the past, or maybe also come to us from the future. And you know, you're working quite actively towards creating these projects, such as Aeroscene, actually apparatuses that are working without any fossil fuels, just with the heat of the sun, which seems like a futuristic idea, but also actually a very ancient idea, you know, without any technology in the way that we define technology very often, but looking towards the sun. So I think that this getting away from this present moment or of linearity and causality and everything, you know, happening in a certain way, actually opening up to presences of different persons, whether they're human or not human, alive or not, but also different ideas, etc., can really be quite useful, especially when it comes to this moment of, you know, ecological crisis, etc., that we're living through. So how to imagine other futures and pasts. Maybe we take some questions and then go to see the exhibition.
So the question, very short question or comment. What I sense and very much endorse is this urgency that if we're considering the conditions of life under threat, under extreme ways of, let's say, change and transformation, then that transformation also means for us, curators and artists alike, that our practices and the way we see art and we make art fundamentally has to change. That in a way, this sort of post-Duchampian paradigm, right, of the object of art, right, in all its sort of expressivity, autonomy, whatever, suddenly gets shifted into a complete different relationship with audiences, a different relationship to its constitution, to the environment in which art is both shown, discussed, and exists. And I think the webs, obviously, there's such an old and powerful image of these forms of relationships which interconnect so many things. But I would say that sort of fundamental call that if we are questioning many, many paradigms on many, many levels, obviously the questioning of the own practice within its forms of existences and circulation is sort of part of the exercise and part of the call that we have to also contribute to that, let's say, planetary condition. Experimenting is not just a form of experimenting within art, but also experimenting with life. And that maybe for way too long, you know, we have not maybe had the courage, not the moments, not the encouragement to experiment with the forms of lives, because it seemed more easy to accept forms and paradigms of stability. But experimenting with life, can go wrong, can go in all directions, but means, again, a sort of a fundamental way of re-questioning and also finding sort of very temporary, and I think I like that idea of sort of this temporary utility and possibility of certain forms of expression, that they are not, a sort of a new paradigm that we need to find and take the old one, and, this is sort of a very modernist idea, yeah? But sort of sometimes, for some time, could be for a very, very short moment, it's very useful to have a certain idea, a certain practice that leads to that form of experimentation, useful, temporary, momentary, and then it eclipses again, and other sort of ideas reappear. And I think, in a way, these two approaches, I think, that you've discussed so beautifully brings it together. And so that's my last comment. In a way, it also sort of speaks of the museum, of the place where we are here at this very moment, because as we know, sort of the museum as the pinacothèque, as the sort of museum of art, really had to, in a way, isolate itself against two big threats. One was nature. We didn't want to have any sort of natural beings intrude into sort of the holy walls, but also, beyond that, photography, became sort of the technology to dethrone what was painting and classical art. And so in a way, somehow, there in the basement of this museum, we have the sort of two paradigms that very much have actually put in question, let's say, the edifice on which a certain form and understanding of art has been rehearsed, even sort of in a very historic moment. So there's no question, but another. Thank you very much for your conversation.
So I think that once we become less obsessed with staying and making sure that we find our marks, and again, the Western marks of those who caused the Anthropocene, once we let that go, then an archive can become fluid. Some things are remembered, some disappear, and I think that that's something powerful, actually, also in relation to art, where a lot of things are produced, they stay, but for what reason? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.